Hi, and welcome to another General Seminary Digital Formation webinar. If you're watching this, you're watching it probably for the first time in its complete entirety. When we recorded this the first time yesterday through our GoToWebinar software, the Wi-Fi where I was recording the webinar went down about halfway through, so the guests lost connection, and then eventually what we were recording through GoToWebinar cut out as well. So we lost pretty much the entire webinar. So here we are recording it again a second time. We're not live this time, but we're going to go through in one take, pretend it's live. We're not going to have questions at the end, but we wouldn't have questions at the end of yesterday either because the Wi-Fi cut out. So welcome. If this is your first time to one of our webinars, let me tell you a little bit about what we do. Digital Formation is a program through the General Theological Seminary of the Episcopal Church. We help clergy and lay people alike learn how to use these new tools, social media, Facebook, Twitter, whatever it may be, to the best of their spirituality and the best of their ministry as well. We try to do all of this in a theological framework. We try to bring in guest speakers, and we do these webinars and on-demand content. It's a real great program. If you're new, though, if this is your first time joining us, check out the other videos here on the YouTube page, youtube.com/digitalformation, and we look forward to you joining us for future webinars live when we do them. If you haven't been to one of our live webinars, they're a little bit more fun than the next 45 minutes. There's questions and answers going through. It works a little bit more as a live atmosphere. Sorry we can't bring this one to you live, but we look forward to seeing you next month. Today's webinar is something that I've been looking forward to since the beginning of these webinars back in October. We did this 2 years ago. We are going to talk about apps today. We're going to talk about smartphone apps. Let's say you have no idea what we're talking about already. Apps are the programs or the applications that run on your smartphone. They are typically very small. They typically have one focus, but they're typically very handy and helpful on your cell phone because they're constantly connected to the internet. Apps are kind of what make the world go round right now in the smartphone computer world. So we want to highlight some apps that you can put on your smartphone, your iPhone, or your Android device. When we did this 2 years ago, we only focused on iOS, the iOS operating system from Apple, the apps for those devices. We got a lot of pushback from Android people saying, well, what about the Android devices? What about the Android devices? Android was still kind of up and coming at the time, and I only had an iPhone at that time as well. So I now have an Android phone. So I'm looking forward to talking about both iOS and Android apps today. I'll tell you, when planning this webinar, I had an iPod Touch I was going to show you on the screen. As you can see here, we have my Android device on the screen. I was going to have an iPhone as well, and my iPod Touch was so old, it didn't do the technology that it needed to do to show you it. It was an old iPod Touch, so that's a little unfortunate, but we'll bring up the iOS store to show you some of the iOS-only apps. Most of what we'll talk about today will be both iOS and Android. We'll continue that further, though. Before we go on, I want to talk a little bit about what's happened in the mobile industry over the last, since 2007 when the iPhone came out. Right now in America, 55% of people own a smartphone. 55%. That's a staggering number if you consider that most people didn't know what a smartphone was 5 years ago, and there was no such thing as a smartphone 10 years ago. 42% of Americans own a tablet. There's probably a lot of overlap kind of in the Venn diagram. But 92% of smartphones out there, 92% of smartphones are running one of two operating systems, either iOS from Apple or Android, which is the Google operating system. There's a good chance if you have a smartphone out there, you're running one of those two operating systems. The other 8% are other operating systems like Windows 8, Symbian, BlackBerry. So the list goes on, but they're so minor, we're not going to focus on them today. If you are running one of those devices, I'm sure some of these apps are out there. Most likely not, though. Developers will most likely develop for the larger markets, and so that's why there's kind of two primary players that have risen from the ground. But moving forward, today we're going to look at some applications. I want to talk a little bit about what's important in an app. I want to talk about some quick app alternatives, some things that you can do without even installing an app on your phone. I also want to then go through my favorite apps that are out there for both church and ministry. And when I say ministry, we're going to look at a lot of productivity apps. Some of these have nothing to do with church at all, but they do have to do with people management and time organization and taking notes and that type of thing. So if you are in ministry, if you're in any job, these are going to be what I think are the best tools out there for your smartphone. So let's get started. I want to talk about apps in general. We're going to load here. I want to load the Google Play Store. There are two app stores out there. One is Apple's App Store. They have that trademarked and are often fighting for that. Amazon calls their App Store the App Store too. And then there's the Google Play Store. This is where you purchase or download apps for your devices. If you have an iOS or an iPhone, you're going to your iTunes. If you have an Android phone, you'll go to Google Play. I'm going to search for church. Here it comes. Here. We now see under apps, there are a ton of church apps out there. There are churches for apps for individual churches, denominations. You saw the top one was an organ related app, all over the place. I mean, there's so many. So what makes an app worth looking at? What makes an app worth spending the time on your phone? There's three things that I like to look at, particularly when looking at apps. One, is it OS agnostic, OS operating system agnostic? Does it not need to be on one operating system? Can it run on both iOS and Android and maybe more? Are there apps that can run on iOS and Android and Mac and PC and talk between each other? This is important because more and more people out there are not limited to one ecosystem. They're not just on iTunes. They're not just in Android. They have both. A lot of people out there have an Android. The majority of smartphone owners have an Android phone. A majority of tablet owners have an Apple tablet. So we can suppose that the majority of people out there with both a tablet and a smartphone are probably running a Google and an Apple device. So can an app talk between these two devices? Number two, and it has a lot to do with number one, but is the data cloud-based? Once upon a time, if you remember the old Palm devices, you needed to sync your device to your computer in order to back it up. If you had any contacts on your phone, if you had a calendar, there was the syncing process. And if you had a Palm, you knew that that process wasn't as streamless as you maybe want it to be. You had to plug it into your computer, you had to hope it worked, you had to make sure then the information on your computer was backed up. If you lost your Palm or your computer or whatever, you often lost your contacts. Apps today are, for me, most important when that data on my phone is backed up somewhere else, either on Apple servers or Google servers or someone else's server over there. I want to know if I lose my phone, the only thing I'm going to be out is a phone. And sometimes that's the least expensive piece, right? I mean, our data is more important to us than the phones itself. Phones can be replaced. Years and years of contacts, years of pictures, years of notes or sermons or whatever it may be cannot be replaced. So are those apps backing up as we go along? And three, are those apps polished? In researching for this webinar, I had a great opportunity to download both iOS and Android apps. I love my Android phone. I sometimes miss iOS. I never miss iOS more than when I'm looking at an iOS app. The apps on the iPhone are just a little cleaner, a little more polished. You'll see, we're going to pick a random church app here. Let's go to, boy, this one here. This looks like it could be a doozy. See, this is just a picture app of churches. There's nothing pretty about that at all. There are a lot of junk apps on the Google Play Store. So an app needs to look and work well too. Bugs, if it's a buggy app, it's just going to cause you more headaches than it is worth your time. So these are the three things I look for in an app. can run on both my tablet and my phone. Is a data cloud-based, it's back up automatically, and is the app polished. Before we go much further, if you check the bottom of this video, there's a link. This will connect you to a Google Doc. That is a cloud-based Excel file that I've created through the Google Doc system. This will have a list of all the apps that we talked about today and a link on where to download them and if they cost money. So if you're interested in some of these apps, you can click that link on your computer or your smartphone device, and you will be able to jump into that store, that either the iOS store on your Apple device or the Google Play Store on your Google device, and you can follow along with us there. So now, moving forward for the next maybe 20 minutes or so, I want to showcase some of these apps, some of the things they do, highlight some of the features, why you'd want to use them. The first handful we're going to talk about are church-based apps, and then the rest are going to be productivity apps. But before we talk about any apps, I want to draw our attention here to my Android device. This is the screen currently on my phone. There's one website that I use more than any other website out there, and that's the lectionary page. If you're an Episcopal preacher, or you're working on your church's bulletins, or whatever it may be, you probably use this page, lectionarypage.net. It's just a really helpful way to get the readings that you need for this week. There are plenty of apps that do the lectionary out there. I like to just use the lectionary app on my phone because it's simple. But what if you want to keep this on your home screen and treat it like an app? Both iOS and Android have a way of doing this. I'm going to show you on the Android device. We're going to here go to the lectionarypage.net. You see, this is the same as this web page here. On iOS, there's a little share button you should be familiar with if you're familiar with your iOS device on Safari. When you click that share button, it's typically a little box with an arrow pointing out. I know they changed it a little with iOS 7. If you click it and there's an add to home screen button, that will just put that website on your home screen. I'm going to show you how to do it on Android. This is a pretty new feature with one of the more recent versions of the Chrome browser on your Android phone, so make sure you run your updates before doing this. So up here at the upper right hand corner of your screen, you see 3 dots. If you tap those 3 dots there and you scroll down, you're going to see an add to home screen option. If you click that, it's going to then give you an option to title the page. And then it's going to pop it up right here on your home screen, and then you can move it around as you would any other app. So let's do that again, but one thing we're going to talk about in a minute is how there are few free NSRV translations out there for a lot of the apps we're going to use. So one option may be for you to keep your NRSV on your phone through one of these shortcuts. The NRSV version, the NRSV I use most is the Ormus Bible. So I'm going to tap that link and this comes up here. Now I want to keep this on my phone, so once again I'm going to go up to the upper right hand corner and click add to home screen. I say NRSV add, and there, just like the lectionary page, here it is on my home screen, and I can now drag that into a folder if I wanted to. It works the same way, adding folders on Android and iOS. This is just a real easy way to put links on your home screen. The apps are not offline. You still need to be connected to the web to get these apps once they're on there on your phone like that. But there you go. So let's talk about apps themselves. This is why you came. You didn't come to hear about browser shortcuts or probably app philosophy. You want to hear the meat and potatoes. What apps are good out there? Why should I put them on my phone? Let's start at the top. The most basic of apps, let's talk about Bible apps. We're going to make this a little bigger. Let's talk about Bible apps. Here we go. So, there are three, I think, kind of front runners of the Bible apps out there. This one here, this you see Holy Bible. This one's called YouVersion, YouVersion. This is probably the most basic of the decent Bible apps out there. There certainly are more basic ones than this. But this one has reading plans, bookmarks, profile. This has kind of been like the quiet front runner in Bible, the quiet kind of guy in the shadow in Bible apps out there. It's good. It has your Bibles. It has your reading plans, has videos, worth looking up. But you'll notice it does not have the NRSV. Episcopalians are going to be a little bit out of luck when it comes to Bible translations, and I'm going to explain that in a minute. So we're going to go... so that's YouVersion. That's certainly one to look at. YouVersion's free. All these apps are free, and I'm going to tell you the catch here in a second. Another app out there is the Logos Bible software. If you have a PC, you're probably most used to the Logos Study Bible software. They also make Logos for app, but I know the Accordance is Bible study system is a little bit more popular on the Mac than Logos, but they do make Logos for Mac. But what's nice about the Logos app on the phone and on the tablets is that all of your modules that you've purchased from Logos are automatically available for your device. So if you've purchased different translations through Logos, you'll also have those translations on your app. It's kind of another point in their ecosystem. That's really neat. So if you've invested quite a bit of time and money in Logos already, this is kind of your no-brainer Bible app on your phone. Again, no RSV out of the box. Finally, now Olivetree has come up a bit in the app market. They're pretty popular. They do kind of the same thing that you're going to get from Logos, but it's a little bit more app-based. I think there is Olivetree desktop software, but their apps are actually pretty good. But one thing you're going to see right away with this Android app, see how we have some things here at the top that don't look right? This is what I talk about when I mean a polished app. That Logos app looked really pretty. Even the YouVersion looked really pretty. Not really wild about the presentation of Olivetree. So there's that. Now, both Olivetree and Logos, you can buy the NRSV for $10. Not a bad price for a digital Bible, but if you have bookshelves of NRSV Bibles, you may have to buy this again, really. That's because the NRSV is a there's copyright held on the NRSV. I think I keep reversing those letters. Apologies out there. So both Logos and Olivetree are great. They have a lot of free translations, and they're good free translations. But if you're looking for the NRSV for your official Episcopal use, you're going to have to pay the extra $10 on those apps. Or simply use the Ormus browser and keep it on your phone. Those are some decent Bibles out there. What if you want to go beyond a Bible? What if you want to use your phone or your tablet for prayer? Both, all three of those apps are all iOS and Android apps. And you'll see on the spreadsheet and the Google Doc that the links for both of them there. Another app out there that's available for both both Android and iOS is the Mission of St. Clare Daily Office app. Now, talk about apps not looking polished. This is not the most glamorous app out there, but it really is. It's the Daily Office. So I'm going to let it slide because it doesn't need to be that beautiful. But it does a great job at what it does. Let's see can I get this to go to the home screen? There we go. Real easy. Do you want to do morning prayer or evening prayer? Let's do morning prayer. Here we are. Here are the readings for today. The collects, the readings, everything's set up as in the Book of Common Prayer. If you don't want to flip through either two books or one book, however you have it set up, the app's a really good way of doing it. I tend to like paper. Daily Office is a little bit more. Prayer is one of the few times I don't have a device in my hand during the day, or I'm not looking at a screen. I try to keep it that way. But if you're on the go, if you're on the train or on a plane or wherever you are, standing in line, whatever, and you want to quickly do the Daily Office, this is a good way to do it as well. So that's the Mission of St. Clare app. I'm pretty sure that's free for both iOS and Android, and well worth picking up as well. If you follow the links on the Google Docs, it's a little tricky to find on the Android store. Doesn't come up as kind of something instantly, but there's that. One final Bible tool I wanted to talk about may be my favorite app we talk about today, particularly with the Bible apps. Again, this is both available for iOS and Android. I think it's $5 on iOS. On Android, it's free with ads or $5. I say, almost as a rule, if you can swing it, pay for the app itself. These developers are struggling. Throw them the money. Not all of them are struggling. Some we're going to talk about quite wealthy. But, throw the developer the money for these apps and get rid of the ads, because those are just ugly when you're trying to look up words in Scripture. So what this app is really the entire Bible, alphabetically, all the words. So if you're in the sacristy preparing for a service, or your lay reader comes up to you, and and they say, how do we say this word here? You can pull out this handy app and you can click the play button.
A hash to write.
A hash to write.
A hash to write.
A hash to write. And then you're like, I don't even know what a hash to write is. You can click the Google or the Wikipedia link on it, and then it's just going to load Google and Google the word for you. Really neat stuff. Far better than flipping through one of those pronunciation guides, guessing at the pronunciation anyway. This is a fantastic way. $5 tool on your phone. What's crazy about a lot of these apps on your phone, if you were to look at your phone, this is a side tangent. If you were to look at your phone and think of everything your phone can do, all the devices your phone has replaced in the last 10 years. Online recently we saw a Radio Shack ad from the 80s, and everything in the Radio Shack ad is something your phone does now. But what would you have paid for an audio Bible pronunciation tool 10, 15 years ago? $20, $30 to keep in your sacristy? $5 on your phone all the time. Fantastic app. Sorry, I keep rotating my phone here. Hi, Movie Magic. A few days later here, I'm looking at the file before you post to YouTube, and I'm finding that there's actually two really important Bible spirituality apps that I didn't talk about. They're iOS only, but I wanted to quickly mention them because they're probably two of the most Episcopal-centric apps we can talk about. One of them is one of the newer apps from church publishing themselves. They've released the ECP. This is the Episcopal Book of Common Prayer, the electronic Book of Common Prayer. I'm loading it up here. I don't have an iPhone to demo it, but this is a $10 app, and it gives you pretty much the entire Book of Common Prayer. One thing that I can't find in it, this may just be me, I can't find how to enter in page numbers. But what it does a fantastic job at making things very findable. So if you click this more here on your app, you'll have the collects and the prefaces and the prayers. And instead of flipping through and finding them in your Book of Common Prayer, they're all there by name. You click it, it loads up on the screen. This is a really neat resource. For $10, it's worth having on your iPhone, I think, if you find yourself moving in these circles quite frequently. And the other app I wanted to talk about is an app well worth, again, your purchase. Forward Movement, Forward Day by Day, the little books, sometimes the bigger books, for the daily devotions. They have a really neat and, quite honestly, a really pretty iPhone app. They don't have any screenshots here. But for $7, you get the day by day on your iPhone every day. This is cheaper than a subscription. Almost a no-brainer again. If you have an iPhone, if just for great, real quick, it takes 45 seconds, a minute to read day by day. Pray on it, keep it on your phone. Really neat. This is from Forward Movement. Forward Movement's doing a lot in the last few years to kind of revitalize its image. I think this is a great start. So if you're an Episcopalian or anyone with an iPhone, this is another app. So here are quick two iPhone-specific spirituality apps I want to talk about. They're in the links, and we'll move on to your regularly scheduled program. Thanks. We're going to keep moving on. But before we're talking specifically about kind of church and Bible apps, I want to now shift a little bit to productivity apps. These are apps more geared to ministry and mission and working in a church environment than prayer and Bible study. First, one thing I find myself using my phone for the most is note keeping. Jotting down simple notes, sermon ideas, thoughts I had, grocery lists, whatever it may be. I want a note application on my phone that I can access on my computer. The way I have my electronics set up, and you may at home, you may as well, is I have 4 devices. I have a computer at home, I have a computer at church, I have a cell phone, and I have a tablet. It's important for me, this is that cloud-based thing I talked about earlier, it's important for me if I take a note on one of them, I want to be able to access it on all other devices. This is where it's important what note-taking device, what note application you're using. So the first one I'd recommend here quickly, Keep on the Android device or Notes on the iOS device. On the iOS, Notes came with your phone. These are just basic note-taking apps. See, I use mine for keeping track of music, to-do lists, grocery lists, whatever it may be. You can use it for whatever you want, but it's really quick and easy. And then also updates on your Google Docs as well. So when you're on your computer, you could access those notes as well. Same thing works with your iOS notes device. This syncs with iCloud. You can get that in the cloud as well. That will not sync with an Android device, nor will Keep sync directly with an Apple device, but it works pretty well. One application out there that does sync with all devices, Apple, Android, Mac, PC, whatever, is called Evernote. I've talked about Evernote, I think, before. I can't talk highly enough about this program. It's been around since the beginning of the iPhone. It was one of the first note-taking devices out there. I use it for everything. I use it to keep track of important cards. I use it for games. I use it for church projects. You name it, I kind of keep it in my Evernote for multiple reasons. One, it's with me wherever I am, no matter what screen I'm in front of. It's backed up on Evernote server. My Evernote, I don't know if you remember, we talked about this before, it's double password protected. So when I sign into Evernote, I need my phone with me to enter in a PIN. It's secure. It's a great piece of software out there. It's a little bit overkill if you're just taking a quick note. It does that too. And what I love about the Android version of Evernote is that there's some great widgets on your screen. I don't have the widgets here, but I can add an Evernote widget here. On the bottom of my screen. So if I want to quickly add a note, I can just tap that from my home screen and bring up the notes. Evernote is a fantastic tool for keeping track of just kind of your entire digital life. It's free to sign up for. There's a premium version, but I think for most people the free one does enough. So that's great for taking notes and organizing other files on your computer. Get rid of this. Another thing that we've talked about before on some of our previous webinars is our cloud-based storage options. There are kind of 2 big players in the storage-based option discussion. There are multiple out there, but the 2 big ones you're seeing right now are Dropbox and Google Drive. Now there's a third one slightly under here, and that's your iCloud storage. I'm going to talk for a minute why I didn't include that in this list here, but Google Drive and Cloud, or Dropbox, are really your 2 big ones. Ultimately, they pretty much do the same thing. They both do some slightly different things, some better than others, but if you're just looking for a place to store files in the cloud, these are your 2 options. Google Drive is a great app. Google Drive syncs with your Google Docs. If you're already kind of knee-deep in the Google ecosystem, Drive is really your best bet. You have your entire Google list, you have your folders. I kind of can't speak highly enough about Google Drive. But if you're not in the Google ecosystem, you're on iOS, Dropbox certainly I think is the cleaner app. on iOS. It's not even signed in here on my phone. I have a Dropbox account, but I don't use it anymore because I've gone so much to Google Drive. These apps just let you access files in the cloud on your phone. There are a lot of hard drive manufacturers out there, people who make external hard drives that now boast that they come with cloud software built in. I think that's a gimmick. These are perfectly great, these Dropbox and Google Drive, for accessing files on the go. You have constant internet connection with these things. It's great to keep files. I keep my parish directory on my... Oops. Come on, Bible study. I keep my parish directory on my Google Drive so I can look at that if I need to on the road. It's just handy to have. Now, I mentioned about Apple's iCloud ecosystem, why that's not on the list. I really love what Apple does with iCloud. If you have a Mac computer or a MacBook or a MacBook Pro or a MacBook Air, whatever, iMac, whatever, many iOS applications now tie into the iCloud ecosystem. So Pages, Keynote, Numbers, your iWork software, other great apps, your Preview, Pixelmator does it. Fantastic iOS apps sync to the cloud. This allows all of your iOS apps to save their documents in the iCloud, which is just another server somewhere else. And what's great is that if you lose your Mac, you have to sign into another Mac, all those files are backed up. I try to save on iCloud as much as I can for those Mac-specific applications that I use. My biggest beef, why I don't use it more, is it doesn't have a file browser that you can access on your phone or on your computer. There's no iCloud management tool. So whereas here on Dropbox or Google Drive I can browse the files, I need to go into a specific application to see those files using iCloud, and that just bugs me, so I don't bother with it too much. So those are some cloud-based storage solution options. Moving right along, I want to talk about something. This is often when I talk to people about their mobile phones or their smartphones, one of the things that comes up most frequently is, how can I view or edit my Office documents on the phone? Microsoft Office, even though Microsoft has kind of seen a steady decline in the computer market, particularly in phones and tablets, Microsoft Office still is their bread and butter. Most people out there are using Microsoft Office still in their offices, and they want to be able to access these files on their phone. What's some software out there that allows you to do this? There's a few I want to point out. Real quickly, first, Google Drive lets you view these pictures, lets you view these files on your phone, so it can view and edit any Google Doc, which are Google specific word processors. And honestly, I just use Google Docs for everything. I don't have Microsoft Office on my computer, on my Mac. I use the Google Doc because it's free, it's cloud-based, it backs up all the stuff that I've talked about before. And you can still edit in Google Drive. You can also open a Word document in Google Drive and it will convert it to an editable file as well, but then it's stuck in Google Drive. It's not really a Word file anymore. So I can understand if that's not the road you want to go down. A few years ago, a great company came out, made an app called Quick Office. It was a Word, PowerPoint, and Excel editing piece of software. About a year or so back, Google bought it, and they've recently refurbished it and put it out for iOS and Android. It's now called Quick Office. What I love about Quick Office is how well it's tied into your Google Drive. As of now, still, I think if you just even install and sign up for Quick Office, you get a free 5 gigabytes on your Google Drive, I think. It's just worth downloading for that alone. I use this for editing my Office documents. So you can even create a new Word, whatever you want to do, or open a file. I can open it from my drive. And here's my Google Drive. So here's a sermon text on here. And I should theoretically be able to open it. Maybe not. Because these are all Google Docs anyway. This is primarily for Microsoft Office. It's a great program to have on your phone if you're working in the Microsoft Office Windows ecosystem still. A third option that's out there I don't love, but for you it may work really well, is the Office mobile app. A lot of the big app manufacturers are moving cloud-based. A few years ago, Google threw a wrench into the system by offering a complete word processing ecosystem in the cloud. It's free, it worked, it backed up your files, it was shareable. It's not perfect, but it worked pretty well. So the heavy hitters like Microsoft and Adobe are now offering cloud-based subscription plans. So you can subscribe to something called Office 365 for $100 a month or $100 a year or $10 a month, and have kind of access to Microsoft Office in the cloud. This lets you edit your documents in the cloud. Now edit Word, Excel, and PowerPoint files in the cloud. Not the Google Word, Excel, and PowerPoint-like files, but true .docs and .ppts and .els files. If you are an Office 365 member, you also get the Office mobile app on your Android device or iOS device for editing. If you're not an Office 365 member, you can still download the app, but that only lets you view Word, Excel, and PowerPoint files. Honestly, there are a ton of great apps that do that out there, including Quick Office and Drive. If you're just viewing the files, it's not worth having. But if you are already an Office 365 member, that should probably be on your phone. That's this Office mobile here. I'll load it up. It's probably not going to let me get very far because I'm not a 365 member. One thing though, talk about polished. I'm enamored with the visual direction that Microsoft has brought its apps into. The whole, what they used to call Metro, the kind of the flat buttons, the bold colors. I'm just a big fan of what's going on with what Microsoft is doing. So whenever Microsoft releases an app like the Office mobile, I think it looks really pretty, both on iOS and Android. Side tangent. So those are your word processing applications out there. I think cloud is best. If you're on iOS, of course, there's always Pages, Excel, Pages, Numbers, and Keynote, your iWork options. If you've bought a iPhone or iPad since the release of iOS 6, they come free. If you don't, I think they're $10 each. They are good apps. They're great for taking notes, particularly on iPad. They sync to iCloud. My only beef with them there is that, again, you need the Pages, PowerPoint, Pages, Keynote, and Numbers programs on the other phones or Mac to run them. Or you can now edit them in the cloud, but they don't have an Android equivalent, so that you can't really share too well with them that way. Another thing you may do with your phone is read, or your tablet particularly, is read files. First thing I want to highlight when it comes to reading applications is a fantastic piece of software that's available on iOS called Good Reader. This is Good Reader for iPhone. Let me pull up Good Reader for iPad. I think they're $5 each. If you're paying for both of them, that feels a little bit pricey. If you have an iPad, this is one of those apps that you really want to install right outside the box. That's what's great here. You can see in this screenshot here, not only does it read the files that are on your iPad, but you can link Goodreader to your Dropbox, your SkyDrive, which is Microsoft's cloud-based ecosystem, your Google Drive, Box.com, SugarSync, so even some of the smaller cloud-based people out there, and you can use it as you then have a file management system. One thing iOS doesn't have that Google does is the ability to browse files, which can kind of get frustrating. Goodreader kind of lets you skirt around that in a way by linking to these cloud-based options. It then lets you upload and edit PDFs. You can annotate and draw on them and take notes. You can write with your finger or text, or whatever it may be. Absolutely fantastic app out there. This app got me through seminary. When I was using my iPad for doing most of the readings, I was able to put the readings as PDFs and load them in here. You can see, what is average rating? Average 4.5 star rating, which is pretty good for apps out there. So I would spend the $5 if you have an iPad. If you don't have an iPad, if you're running an Android tablet, which certainly isn't the majority of the market share. Most people out there are using iPads if you're running a tablet. The app I'd recommend is just free and pretty easy, and that's where's my phone? Here it is. That's just the Adobe Reader app. Adobe Reader on the Android does a few things that I love really well. It's iOS agnostic. If you sign up for the Adobe account, it lets you sync the PDFs on your phone or tablet into the Adobe Cloud and lets you sync through devices that way. The note annotations are there. Because there is no good reader on the Android, this is your kind of equivalent. It's not a bad equivalent, not as nice, not as good as Goodreader. What I also like about Goodreader is it's kind of independent. It's not Adobe. It's not kind of one of the monster kind of corporations. I like supporting good independent apps. Good independent apps only mean it's a matter of time before Apple or Google buys them, really. But so Adobe Reader on your Android device is your best probably bet for PDF reading. I want to talk about Sketch as well. Sketch is also lets you edit PDFs, but this is a tie-in app to Evernote. If you're in the Evernote ecosystem, Sketch is a fantastic app to have. If you Sketch lets you load notes from your Evernote and edit them. You can also, what I love, this drawn map feature. You can load up a map from Google Maps in your phone and then edit it. So you can say, hey, kind of draw an arrow really quickly. Say, I want you to go here. And you can save it. And then you can send it. The share options on the Google operating system are just so much better than iOS. You send it everywhere, done. It saves you to Evernote, whatever it may be. It's a good app to play around with. Sketch just works directly with Evernote. This is a great document annotating software. It could have gone with even over here with some of our word processors, but it's something I use when I get a PDF and I need to edit it a bit. Finally, an app that's worth our time when reading, when looking at readers, is the Amazon Kindle reader. Talk about one of the big guys in apps. All phones have their own reader out there. I mean, you have Google has its own reader with the Google Play bookstore. iOS obviously has iBooks. They're good, but neither one of them are completely OS agnostic. The thing I like about Amazon Kindle is I know whether I'm on my computer or an Android device or an Apple device or an ebook Kindle reader or even a Kindle tablet, I'm going to be able to download the books that I've purchased through Amazon. A quick little discussion about what it means to buy a book from Amazon. As convenient as it is to have ebooks, and I kind of only buy ebooks nowadays through the Kindle store. It's the only way I read. I'm really only renting the book. If Amazon, for whatever reason, one day wanted to pull that book away from me, they could. I'm paying for the right to have that book on my phone, on my tablet, whatever it may be. I don't really own that book. I own they give me a license to that book that they can take away if they wanted to. That worries me a little. So, and really all the ebooks out there are the same way. Your Google Play Store, iBooks, Kindle, all the same. It worries me because I want to make sure I'm investing a lot of money in with the Amazon Kindle. I want to know that I can read these books 5 years from now, 10 years from now. One thing that Amazon Kindle does to kind of assuage some of that anxiety is that I know no matter what device I wind up with, I'm going to be able to read on it. So I have an Android phone now. If I ever go back to iOS, or I have an Android tablet now, if I ever get an iPad, or whatever it may be, I know that I'll be able to take those books with me, that I'm not locked onto one device. The user interface on iBooks is brilliant. It's beautiful. The store is fantastic to look at. But I know if I buy it on iBooks, I'm not going to then be able to switch to an Android device later on down the road. All of these phone manufacturers are trying to tie you into their ecosystem. What I like about Google the most, even though they're tying you into the Google ecosystem, is that the Google ecosystem is wide enough that you're going to be able to use these a lot of these tools elsewhere. Or like Amazon, it's so big that no matter what device you have, even the Windows devices have Amazon Kindle apps on them. But ultimately, why did I put the Kindle app on here at all? It's not really church focused. Available on Amazon Kindle are the Feasting on the Word commentaries. This is a 12-volume commentary set for the scripture reading on each Sunday. It breaks down all the available lessons into 4 sections. It's a great commentary series, great preacher's tool series, but they're 12 volumes. All 12. I bought all 12 volumes through Amazon Kindle. They're less expensive than buying them hard copy, and I have them on my computer, on my tablet, or on my phone. I don't need to lug around the large book because even they're pretty thick volumes, so it just saves a little bit of space and convenience. Also, going back to the things I like about apps, the Amazon app is cloud-based. If I make notes on a book in one application, it syncs it to the applications as well, so I don't lose those notes. Of course, that is unless Amazon deletes them, but then there's nothing I can do about it. So those are those apps. If this were live, this would be the time when we would turn this around and ask you for your favorite apps. But because we don't have the ability to do that on the YouTube video, we're going to wrap up here. But please use the comment section below and tell us what are some of your favorite apps that you use on your iOS or Android or iPad or whatever it may be device for church or ministry or productivity or whatever it may be. There's tons of other apps we could have talked about out there. We probably could have talked a little bit about health and fitness apps for clergy. There's plenty of those great apps out there too. What games are good to kind of blow off some steam, to kind of let your mind wander for a little while. Did you get addicted to Flappy Bird out there? Whatever it may be. Leave those comments below. Before we leave, I want to point your attention, as always, to gts.edu/digitalformation. On March 13th, we have our final webinar of the academic year. This is called Transformation, the Evolution of Social Media in Church Today. We're going to do a little bit of, this one's going to be a little headier. This is clearly very practical, very demo focused. Next month, we're going to do a little bit more on the why ultimately should you take these last few months of learning and put them into the context of your church and ministry. Why are social media and new media and technology so important moving forward? That's what we're going to talk about then. We really hope you can join us on March 13th at 2 o'clock Eastern Time. Thanks for joining us. Again, I'm Colin Chapman, a digital missioner here at GTS Digital Formation. I love doing these videos. I love having you watch them. Comment, email, do what you wish. And hopefully we'll see you around next month. Until then, take care, God bless, and keep playing with these tools online. You can only learn a little bit more each time. Take care.